when three of us brothers were sitting around a table at Dairy Delight in Tooele, planning this service, we discussed what subjects each of Mom's sons might want to touch upon as they spoke. Joel wasn't present, so we decided he would go first. He would give the eulogy and tribute. I said I would go next and give the rebuttal. Vaughn and F. hoped I was joking, and some have pointed out that this idea is inappropriate and more than a little stupid. But hey, it's my talk. It's also been pointed out to us that any one of us, brothers, or all of us, occasionally might have a tendency to express a modicum of ideas with a maximum of words. So in the interest of brevity, I hope to stick with what I've written. I've often apologized to my Sunday school class for referring to so many personal experiences when I teach, but then I have never had any impersonal experiences. So as the son who was privileged to spend by far the most one-on-one time with Mom over the past 25 years or so, I had the chance to witness her behavior in a wide array of situations and circumstances. She was not perfect. Let me explain what I mean. As most of you know, Mom had a number of troublesome medical problems, and so often I would take her to various doctors on my days off to see what they could do for her. It's no secret that no matter how diligent a patient might be in showing up on time for an appointment, the doctors never do. So we spent many hours waiting in doctors' waiting rooms. Eventually, the waiting got to her and she began to complain bitterly about what a waste of time it was to just sit there doing nothing while the high-paid professionals took their own sweet time getting to her. No, wait a minute. That was me. I was the one who complained. As I think back on it, she was always serenely patient and even apologized to me that she was wasting my time. This was so, even though it was never her fault. I'm sorry, I'll have to strike that example. Well, there were the times that she simply lied to me. On many of our forays into the big city, she always loved to go to movies when we had time. So often after a doctor's appointment, we would stop in at the nearest megaplex to see a movie that we had agreed upon. Rarely was she able to stay awake. Nearly every time I would look at her during the movie, I would see her poor misshapen neck awkwardly bent over, and she'd be sound asleep with her chin on her chest. After we left the theater, I would ask her how she enjoyed the movie. She always said it was good. That's a lie, right? Well, maybe I'm misjudging what she said. The movies usually were good. Maybe she meant that she thought it was good just to have a chance to get out with me and to go to a movie. And maybe she just meant she had a good nap. So I guess that's not really a lie, and I'll have to strike that example as well. Another thing she loved to do was to eat out at a nice, inexpensive restaurant, to have lunch. She was never extravagant. One of her favorite places was Kowloon Restaurant in West Valley City. She would usually have the salmon, and I would always have the halibut. We loved going on Fridays because they served delicious clam chowder. She didn't like clams and would spoon her clams into my chowder. Once we had a bit of an upset about these lunches when she complained that she always had to pay. No way, that's not right either. I was complaining because she would never let me pay. Well, you can see where this is going. It's truly difficult to find fault with the woman. Mom could be quirky and funny, and especially in her later years. Everyone knows she loved to shop. Walmart was one of her favorite places on earth, and she was thrilled when they built a new store there. When I would take her there, she would ask me how much time I needed to do my shopping. My answer was always 10 minutes. She would treat that as a foolish joke and say she needed at least an hour or two. Once when I asked her why she needed so much time, she said, "There are aisles in this store I have never seen." So we would part, and she would shop for hours. Why she felt the need to shop in the aisle where they sell auto air filters and motor oil, I couldn't understand. She also loved mall shopping, any mall. We would set a time to meet back at the food court, and off she would go. Once when I was walking with her in Fashion Place Mall, we were chatting as we window shopped. Suddenly she stopped. When I turned to see why, I saw this tiny 80-year-old woman looking longingly into a huge store with windows filled with mannequins dressed in such scanty lingerie they needn't have bothered. It was Victoria's Secret. When I jokingly asked if she wanted to buy something there, she hesitated and then said, "Yeah. But their stuff is too expensive." I have to think she was contemplating the hand lotion. Mom loved sports and was a huge fan of the Jazz and of BYU. It disappointed her greatly to ever miss a game. Luckily, in recent years, she had a neighbor at Cottage Glen who would remind her of game times and help her find the right channel on her TV. Occasionally, Karen or I would go to watch a game with her. It was normal for her to fall asleep several times during the game. Then she would always wake up and ask who was winning. Often in the third or fourth quarter, she would say something like, "Now, are we the blue or the white?" One afternoon when I went to visit her, I asked her what she'd been doing that day. Her enthusiastic reply was, "Watching the Jazz. They've had games on all day." I looked at her TV and saw that it was tuned to ESPN, and I realized she'd been watching NBA highlights and just assumed that one or other of the teams had to be the Jazz. I want to finish with two more experiences, one that reveals what a trial her life was, and the other what a magnificent person she had become in spite of her difficulties. At one point, the pain in her neck had become so great that her doctor referred her to a noted orthopedic surgeon. He ordered x-rays and an MRI. After studying her situation carefully, he asked her to come in for a consultation because he thought there was something that might possibly be able to be done. When he told her that, I could see a ray of hope in her eyes because she suffered greatly with her neck. The doctor picked up a plastic model of a human neck and described how basically he thought it might be possible to disassemble her neck, reassemble her vertebrae in the correct places, and hold everything in place with a series of braces and splints. Then he gave two big cautions. Such an operation would cost an enormous amount of money, and it might not relieve her pain at all. It might make it worse. He put his hand on her arm and gently said, "I know how badly you want this, but if you were my mother with the identical condition, I would not operate." She was crestfallen, but went right back to her normal daily striving, resigned once again to living with pain. She never wanted to take medication for her pain because she was afraid of becoming addicted to painkillers. No matter how much her doctor told her that taking a prescription doesn't make you a drug addict. The final thing I want to mention is sacred. It concerns a calling to serve the Lord in a special way that she received directly from the Spirit without intervening priesthood authority. This was so because the calling does not exist in the church. One day, many years ago, she was at the family history library performing her normal routine of finding families to assemble and save. She was studying microfilms of English parish records and comparing them with census records and taking notes on the various members of a family she'd been trying to find. During this particular search, she somehow discovered a female member of a household who wasn't listed in the birth and christening records and had no obvious connection to the family. Try as she could, she was unable to account for this discrepancy. This young person stood out to her mind as someone of importance. So she prayed. She asked the Lord what she was missing and why she couldn't understand it. Then, as she described it to me, she received an immediate, clear, and direct response. The Spirit whispered to her that she had discovered an illegitimate child who would remain lost unless someone could connect her. From that moment on, she felt that she'd been given a special calling to find those who were lost or misplaced in the records because of illegitimate birth. I don't know exactly how many of these sacred souls she saved, how many she was able to find and connect. She once told Joel that it was over 600. She called it her love line. Mom was not perfect, but she was certainly striving to be. She was fully invested in living the gospel day in and day out. I will be eternally grateful for the experience of spending time with her on her ordinary, miraculous days. For reasons that are beyond my understanding, my life has been infinitely blessed to be intertwined with the lives of 4 perfectly amazing and righteous women. My mother, her mother, the mother of my children, and the mother of Dad's second family. May God bless all who are such examples of righteous womanhood. In the name of their Savior, my Savior, and your Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.